Had a dream last night. The walls, the ceiling, and the floor were a dark wood, and in the ceiling there were these small incandescent lights. And if you've ever had a dimmer on an incandescent light, you can make it dim enough that it goes from yellow to gold and orange and red in this sort of color spectrum. And so there were these small incandescent lights in the ceiling that were giving this warm glow, this sort of subterranean glow. I might have been underground, I might have been in a building, but this was the only source of light, and there was a priest in this room, and there were two others standing beside me, and we were standing and we were listening to this story, to this parable of wine. Something like a holy wine, or two holy wines that were made in a monastery. In the monastery, for whatever reason, it could have been political, it could have been a war, it could have been economic. The monastery knew its time was limited, and so it put its last-ditch effort into producing these two holy wines. Now, of course, the monastery fell apart and was ruined again. Maybe pillaged in war, maybe pilfered economically, but these wines ended up in the hands of wealthy families. And ultimately, they came into the hands, in the first case, in the first family, they ended up in the hands of a family with a son who was a partier, and he had a house party. And in that house party, there was a lot of drinking, there were a lot of drugs, and there was a big punch bowl. And the punch bowl was having all sorts of, cheap dollar store vodka put into it, everything you can imagine, all kinds of liquor. And someone is yelling out, we need more punch, we're running out of punch. And so someone grabs this wine bottle off a shelf. Of course, this is a wealthy home. This is a $1 million mansion. The parents are gone. They're on vacation. And the rich son, he's hosting this house party. And he or someone else grabs this ancient, really valuable holy wine from this monastery, uncorks it, and pours it into the punch bowl, and then pours some more vodka in, and pours some more Jack Daniels or whatever they're using. And it's all mixed and diluted into the punch bowl, and they pour in orange juice or Kool-Aid or whatever. And people are getting drunk off it. And then eventually, someone gets sick. A young girl, 16-year-old girl, she gets sick. She gets alcohol poisoning. And the neighbors call the cops, and the police arrive, and the girl is brought to the hospital, and they try to save her, but she dies. And this is where the wine ends up. The holy wine ends up in the corpse of a young girl. Now, that wasn't the only holy wine that was produced. There were two. And the other one ends up in a much different place. It ends up actually in the hands of a priest who recognizes the holy wine for what it is. It is very valuable. He is able, through much trouble and much effort, he is able to acquire this holy wine. He recognizes it for what it is. And he thinks to himself that I will use this holy wine for a Mass, which will be my greatest Mass. It could be maybe Jesus Christ himself is going to walk through the door, and at that point I'll uncork the holy wine, and I will use this holy wine in the Mass in which Jesus himself is attending, and he is part of that holy Mass. But the priest is a perfectionist, and that day never comes. And so each day or each Mass or each week, he says, no, this isn't the right Mass, this isn't the right Mass. And he's waiting for this day, and every day, every week, he becomes a little more suspicious. He becomes a little more afraid of what will happen to his wine. It's a valuable commodity that someone who only wants the value of the wine. They see it as like a pawn shop heirloom, or they see it as, you know, an antiques roadshow sort of thing. They don't understand the spiritual power of it, that they're going to try to steal it, that thieves are going to come and steal it. So what he does is he hides the wine away. He doesn't tell anyone. He creates a secret little cupboard in a secret little cellar. You know, he digs out a cellar underneath the church and boards it up. He says, one day when that special mass comes, I'm going to unboard the floors, and I'm going to go down into my cupboard, and I'm going to grab this wine, and we're going to use the holy wine. But years pass and decades pass, and eventually the priest has a stroke. And by this time, the church has become empty. No one comes to church anymore. And the church is bankrupt. And he's had a stroke, and he loses a lot of his memory. He loses a sense of who he is and where he is. So the government takes him into a nursing home, and the church goes bankrupt, and he has to pay these bills. He doesn't know where he is, by the way. He doesn't remember the wine. And at this point, the government decides to auction off the church property, the building, to the highest bidder. And the highest bidder decides to bulldoze the church. Of course, he never told anyone about his secret wine cellar with his secret wine. And so as the bulldozers, bulldoze the church, the ceiling of the wine cellar collapses in and crushes the wine, and the wine seeps into the soil and is forever lost. So these are two stories about two bottles of wine. And you could say there is a sexual meaning to this, a Freudian interpretation about, in the first case would be an example of a kind of libertine sexuality where the wine is lost not because it is unused, but because it is used improperly. It is not thrown away in the sense of being broken, but it is thrown away in the sense of being used without respect, and therefore it is in a sense lost. And in the second case, it is a kind of a perfectionism that prevents the wine from having any kind of realization or having any kind of impact. It remains a potentiality, and then it is done away with. So there is a sexual interpretation, but above that, it is just speaking about potentiality and spirituality and gifts and purpose. I think the wines represent purpose, that we see people with talent and we see people with ability, and oftentimes they waste that talent and ability on frivolous things, on partying or on video games. People spend time and energy playing stupid games and getting stupid prizes. So we see this, and then we also see people who are perfectionists, people who are kind of afraid to use their gifts and their talents because it's not the right time, or, I'm going to wait for a Messiah, or I'm going to wait for a second coming. They're always waiting. They're always saying, yeah, I could do something, but I'm just going to wait till the time is right. Well, the time is never going to be right. So in both cases, if we see the wine as a metaphor for potentiality, we see two types of people and two approaches and two ways that your life's purpose can go unfulfilled. If in the one case you spend your life pursuing frivolous things, or in the other case you are always hesitant and you're always afraid to move forward and step forward because what if I waste the wine? What if that Mass was not the perfect Mass? What if Jesus was going to come in the next Mass or something like this? So both mentalities, both extremes, the flagrant disrespect for oneself, the obsession with superficialities, hedonism, this kind of approach, we see the pitfalls of that. We see how a life can be wasted in those kinds of pursuits. But then we also see how perfectionism and hesitance and fear and reticence can also waste a life. And that there is some kind of maybe an Aristotelian mean between these two, where we say, okay, we're not going to waste our lives on frivolous things, on things which are clearly superficial. which are clearly a waste of our time, which are hedonic, which don't serve any kind of higher purpose. But then on the other hand, we have to also avoid, and we also have to reject the mentality that says, well, we'll do something when the moment is right, or we'll do something when things are perfect. And we understand that there are cases, certainly if these two folks met each other, the party-goer and the priest, if they met each other, surely the party-goer would say, hey man, live a little bit. You're a priest. You're supposed to do mass. You're supposed to give out wine. So today's just a good day as any. So, don't waste another day of your life. Just do it, man. That's what the party-goer would say to the priest. And the priest would say to the party-goer, you are wasting your life. You are the son of a rich family. You have great potentiality. You could do great things. You could impact people's lives. You could use your money and your influence to make the world a better place, but instead you're partying. And when you die, the world will know nothing of you and care nothing of you because you were just a partier. So the priest and the party-goer would each have some kind of wisdom to impart to one another. And we can always look at our own lives in this dialectic and say, where am I not being serious enough? Where am I not taking my life seriously? Life needs to be taken seriously because there are many serious problems and issues that we face. And if we don't take life seriously, we have no chance of addressing these things. There's a great deal of pain and suffering that could be avoided or that could be confronted and challenged, and we have a duty to challenge it. But that takes a level of seriousness, and you can't just be a party-goer. You can't just be ironic. You can't just be funny. You can't just be a comedian and just laugh it all off, because you have a duty to be serious about life. But on the other hand, being too serious means sometimes that nothing ever gets done because it's never the right time, it's never the right place. So both of these attitudes have their issues, and I guess the real wisdom is knowing when you're falling into one extreme or the other extreme. Because there are, of course, cases where someone could say, hey, come on, man, let's go do something stupid. Let's go do something dangerous. And they'll mistake that as bravery, or they'll mistake that kind of behavior as the right path, when in fact it's leading you to ruin. When being impulsive and being violent and being a party-goer and being overly naive and energetic, you're wasting your life in that way. When you're engaging in a kind of fetishization of violence, engaging in a kind of fetishization of history or aesthetics, or engaging in a fetishization of authority and power and things of this nature, that can be a wild and a brash and an irresponsible path. But we also see people who will just do nothing and say nothing and be nothing because they're afraid. They're afraid of everything. They're afraid this isn't the right moment. Maybe tomorrow will be the right moment. Oh, I can't do anything anyway. And I think, when I look at the criticism that is addressed to me, and I do get criticism, when I see the criticism, it is often of one nature or another. It is, you are too ironic, you are not serious enough, there are serious things, serious people that we need to do some serious stuff here, and you're making a joke out of everything. Sometimes I might get that criticism. I think more often, because this is just the nature of the right wing, I think more often I get the criticism of you are not taking action enough, that we need to go out and do extreme things, and here you are offering caution, and here you're saying keep the powder dry, and so you are not radical enough, and you are all talk and no action, and we really need to go out and do something. So I get these kinds of criticisms, and again, the two extremes show us that neither path is ultimately in itself the right choice. It is neither the right choice to act flagrantly, nor is it the right choice to act as a perfectionist who never accomplishes anything. But there is some kind of middle path That is the role of discretion in helping us, and judgment, being prejudicial. We can't know the future, but we have to make a prejudgment of what the future might be like, and have prejudice and say, this is the best path forward. So it's a dream that I had. I know it seems really elaborate, and of course I do exaggerate. I do fill in, when I wake up and I think of the dream I had, I do fill in details and maybe add exaggerations. But the basic elements were there. And of course there were other parts of the dream. I was reading Egyptian hieroglyphics and things that I can't remember. I was reading some ancient Egyptian and Hebrew prayers, and I was looking at the parallels between the two, and I don't remember what the prayers were exactly. So, that was a dream. So it's a little dream. It's just a little video about a little dream. That's all it is. So thanks for listening, and I will be with you next time. Bye-bye.